Welcome to The Backstory, a podcast from the North Dakota News Cooperative that takes an in-depth look at the stories we're reporting for you. I'm Sabrina Halvorson, CEO of the North Dakota News Cooperative. Joining me is Michael Standaert, our lead reporter. For today's backstory, we are continuing the conversation on the latest polls that we commissioned to find out where North Dakotans fall on certain issues. So Michael, we've had our poll results come out last week, and this is something that I spoke about previously with Mary Jo Hotzler, who is a board member and who is in charge of the poll project. But we talked about how the poll happens and some of the background and details of how we make that happen. But once the poll results come in, once we get them back from the company that we hired to do the poll, you take those and you break them down and you make them into a few separate stories. So you talk to other people and you get interviews and then you put it all together to make this something that we can really dig into. So with the articles that have come out on the poll now, what are some of the things that go into it on your end as a reporter and making this so that our readers can really get into those poll results?
Sure. Yeah. For all the polls, I have nothing to do with the questions, picking anything related to that. I want to stay as far away from that as possible. So I hear probably the general topics within a week or so before I get the data, and then the data is sent to me. I can sift through it and look at what the answers have been, and then I start to try to figure out who to talk to get some kind of reaction to those answers. At least with this one. In the past, with some of the poll results, we've basically just written results as is into a story. But we felt it was better to try to get more context in the stories with a few comments from analysts, people who are following some of these issues. So that's what we've tried to do this time. And it's basically, I just go through the poll, I start looking at everything and just trying to breaking down what seems most interesting. And then also I spoke with Mary Jo a little bit about what she saw in it. And it's a kind of discussion you have. And then you also have this discussion with the people you're interviewing. Okay, what jumped out at you? What do you think it's most important? What does this mean? That's the questions that come up when you're looking at it yourself and also when you're talking to other people.
You mentioned that as a reporter, you have nothing to do with the questions that are asked. You don't get any of the results before they're officially released to us. You're not involved in the planning of the poll. So how important is it to you to have that separation from what we do in the planning of the poll and getting the poll to the company that actually conducts the poll, and then you getting the information as a reporter? Why is that separation important?
I think it's important. I want to come to the data pretty fresh and just not really know anything about it until looking at it. So I have a fresh look at it, at what's come out. When I speak with people, either after the poll or for a story about the data that's come out, I often have to explain, because they're often like, oh, your poll. It's like, no, I didn't have anything to do with any of the questions, how the questions were phrased or anything like that. So I try to explain that to people I am a neutral source in this process, and that's where I want to be. I don't really want to have anything skewing my view of the data that is presented in the poll itself.
With every story like that too, because you're very careful not to put any of your own personal bias, and that's something that as a reporter myself, something that I've talked about quite a bit throughout my career. We acknowledge that we all have personal bias, of course. Everybody has personal bias, but as a reporter, it's very important to not let that get into your stories. So in something like this, with these poll results, is that more difficult, or are there steps that you take?
No, I don't think it's more difficult. Actually, I think it's actually easier. When you're doing another story, you just have, as you're doing it, you just have general ideas about how something is going, how something should be phrased. But then through that process of speaking with people, you might hear something, I didn't think of it that way. And that's always refreshing to me. And I try to reflect that in the stories. If something comes up that offers a different view of something that we're looking at, I think that's good. It's good to have multiple viewpoints on whatever topic you're looking at. I think it's easier with the polls because that data is there and the data is the data. I don't know how else to say it, but you just use the data. That's basically it.
It's just solid facts. It's what 64% of the people said, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, a solid take on what people are thinking. And I think using this new polling company helps as well. I think we got more people this time. The past had always cut off at 500 people. This time we have 625, which is very good for a poll, especially in a state. It's good for a poll in many places, especially good for a state of 780,000 people, I think we have. Those things are good to see that you're trying, that you're reflecting a pretty accurate picture of what people are thinking.
Thank you, Michael. Once again, you can read each of those articles about the polls on our website at newscoopnd.org or in our partner newspapers. For the North Dakota News Cooperative, I'm Sabrina Halvorson. This has been The Backstory.